think it's important for us to understand where this entire war came from. It did not come from Bashar al-Assad. It came from Washington. There was a decision in 2011 to overthrow Assad. Actually, that came from Jerusalem. This has been a desire of the Israeli government that stretches back more than 25 years. Netanyahu's idea is make the Middle East in Israel's image, overthrow every government that opposes Israel. He's had a friend in that, and that is the CIA and the United States government. So this war in Syria did not come from Assad's repression. It did not come from Assad's dictatorship. This war came from a presidential order by Obama to overthrow Assad, starting in the spring of 2011. We have a name for this program. It was Operation Timber Sycamore. The United States, together with other countries in this region, trained fighters, especially jihadists, including the ones that just took power, to overthrow the regime. This created chaos. 600,000 dead in Syria in a war that has gone on for 14 years. The outcome of this war is what the CIA wanted back in 2011, which is that a jihad group would take power in Syria after being armed by the United States. The Syrian war is just one of 6 wars that Israel has promoted, including in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. We had the list, actually, from Wesley Clark back in 2001 when he was handed a paper in the Pentagon that the goal was 7 wars in 5 years. The only war that hasn't taken place yet, to Netanyahu's great consternation, is the US war with Iran, which Israel is still trying to instigate to this very day.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, whether you're watching this stream on YouTube or on Rumble. Hello to everyone in the live chat. Hello to our moderator, Red Access. Thank you so much for doing a great job, my friend there. And as you can see, I know the background, the angle, and all these things are not as important as the quality and the content of this channel. I received a few suggestions from friends, whether privately or in the comments, asking me to put the camera like straight like this, because looking on the side is not so comfortable to the eye. And also, for me, to be honest with you, I'm also like sitting like this all the time, and then I'm having a back pain and the neck pain. I already have serious neck pain from time to time, and as you can see, I move my head left and right, and I crack my neck since I was a child, unfortunately, and I have done a few times physiotherapy, which doesn't help me much. Today's episode, of course, is going to be about the Netanyahu visit to the newly occupied territories inside Syria, not in the Golan Heights, but deep inside Syrian territories where the Israeli occupation forces have occupied after the fall of the former Assad government. And as you guys already know, the Jolani regime, it seems that they don't want to stop the occupation of the Syrian territories and the expansion of the Israeli occupation forces inside Syrian territories. And if you're looking for answers, I believe you are at the right place. I think that on this channel, we bring to you quality analysis, especially when it comes to Syria. This channel was created to cover the Syrian war. So this is the video of Benjamin Netanyahu, basically comfortably rolling and cruising inside Syrian territories. And of course, this is very bothering for me and many other Syrians, but let me start this stream by putting this visit into context, because what happened this week, my friends, is not just a symbolic visit by Netanyahu. It is, in my opinion, a geopolitical declaration. This was a message from Netanyahu. This was a test from Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu, accompanied by senior Israeli commanders, walked straight into Syrian territory. Not the Golan Heights this time, which Israel illegally annexed decades ago, but newly occupied zones inside Syria's south, areas that Israel has quietly taken over during the chaos of the Syrian collapse. You can see it clearly, my friends, in many articles published nowadays in different especially Israeli websites. And I would like to bring your attention first into an article in the Times of Israel, just for you guys to know what are we talking about. So, IDF presence in Syria of immense importance, Netanyahu tells troops during visit. So, if we see what is mentioned here, you can clearly notice that this time you can see it clearly, for example, in the Times of Israel report, that Netanyahu tells the troops, the Israeli occupation forces, that Israel's presence in Syria is of, quote, immense importance and will not be rolled back. I think this is not an accidental phrase. This is the state policy. This is an official policy of Israel nowadays vis-a-vis Syria, or what is left of Syria. Unfortunately, this is nowadays nothing but a Takfiristan led by none other than Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. Now, France 24, which I will display here, as you can see, frames it in more diplomatic language. They say tensions rise, so-called buffer zone, so-called security interests, you know. But my friends, if you strip away the euphemisms, what happened is this, and I'm going to be very, very bold here. The Israeli Prime Minister paid a high-profile visit to a piece of Syrian land and basically told the world, we are not living. You can go and F yourself. This is literally what he did. Then afterwards, of course, comes the Reuters. And I just put it on the screen too, because this article includes the one sentence that perfectly captures the absurdity of the current situation and moment in Syria. They say Syria, I mean, they mean the new regime, the Jolani regime in Damascus, condemned, my friends. This regime condemned the Netanyahu visit deep inside Syrian territories. Condemned. That's it. No military pushback, no mobilization, no deterrence, just a press release. Imagine if any of the religious or ethnic minorities in Syria have raised their head and said, I want dignity, I want my rights, I want to be treated equal in my country. The Jolani regime would have mobilized his forces and sent into Asweda or into Latakia or into the eastern shore of the Euphrates in order to massacre his own people. They are braves. Abu Muhammad al-Jolani is so brave against his own people. He has enough forces to slaughter unarmed civilians. He has enough forces to decapitate people, to summarily execute them in the streets, to rape women. Bravo, you're so brave, Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. But when it comes to Israel, you have nothing to offer but a condemnation. Anyways, this is the reality of the situation, unfortunately, in Syria. And it seems that the Jolani regime will be just releasing a press conference, basically. Why? But you may ask, why is that so important? Why what I'm saying, this mockery of the Jolani regime is important? Because this same regime, which was previously nothing but a militia, a gang, spent more than a decade projecting itself as the fiercest anti-Assad force in the country, the bravest fighters, the lion-hearted defenders of Syrian dignity, right? For years, they told Syrians, and of course the world, that once they reached Damascus, once they took power, the real sovereignty of Syria would finally be restored from the tyrant, right? Well, you guys reached Damascus, Assad fell, you guys now sit in the presidential palace. And what happens the moment Israel expands further into the Syrian territory? You guys turn into a whisper, into a spectator, into a fragile authority incapable of responding. What happened, Habibis, to all these anti-tank rockets that you got from the CIA, right? What happened to all the suicide bombers and all the car bombs and all the brave mujahideen all of a sudden? You will not find them. Let's be honest, my friends, about this. This regime in Damascus today was never built to defend Syria against a foreign state. This regime was built, armed, funded, and politically shaped to fight a specific enemy, and that is the previous Syrian state and its institutions, and by extension, also the Syrian people, especially those who stood on the side of their state against these foreign-backed jihadi terrorists. That was the battlefield they trained for, right? That was the power structure they grew in. They fought other Syrians with ferocity. But when it comes to confronting Israel, well, suddenly the fire disappears and they become rabbits. Israel knows this. Tel Aviv has always been exceptional at reading regional vulnerabilities. And when Netanyahu stands on Syrian soil and tells his soldiers that Israel's presence there is essential and permanent, he is sending a message, not only to Syrians, by the way, but to the entire region and to the world. He says the following: this land that we recently occupied is ours now. And nobody is going to challenge us, especially not the new regime in Damascus. This is the message that Netanyahu is sending. And the so-called rules-based international order and all this BS, of course, makes this possible, right? Because the rules only apply when they serve the strategic interests of the United States and its allies. Ukraine's borders, sacred. Immediate outrage, sanctions, resolutions, sending arms. But Syria's borders, disposable, negotiable, useful, right? That's the bitter truth. And if the opponent of Israeli expansion is a fragmented, internally divided, internationally dependent structure like the Jolani government, then the rules are even more flexible. Israel understands perfectly well that this regime has neither the political legitimacy nor the military capability to resist. And beyond that, and here is the important part, the new Syrian leadership is now deeply intertwined with Turkey and the United States, two actors that have zero interest in provoking a confrontation with Israel. So let me be very clear, my friends. Israel will not withdraw from these territories. Let's repeat. Israel will not withdraw from these territories. Not next month, not next year, not under the current geopolitical order in the region. Why would they? What incentive is there for them? They know Damascus or this Jolani regime cannot respond. They know Washington will shield Israel. They know the Arab world is on the side of Israel. And they don't have any counter strategy anyway. They are just part of the game. They are not setting the rules. And they know that the international community, the so-called, put it between brackets, would spend years screaming about violations of sovereignty, will just look away when the violator is Israel. I'm not saying anything incorrect, my friends. This is why Netanyahu made this visit now. It is a victory tour for him. It is a humiliation ritual for the Syrians. It is Netanyahu saying to the new Syrian regime, you cannot control Damascus. Or let's paraphrase that. Actually, for now, Netanyahu says, you may control Damascus, but we control your southern border. And there is nothing you can do about it. Well, and the saddest part is that he is right. The same armed factions that once filmed themselves charging into battle, shouting about liberation and dignity, now cannot even issue a credible threat, let alone a military response to a foreign leader walking across their land. For 14 years, they fought like lions, but only against their own state, against their own national army, against their own civilians from rival communities. When the real test appeared, when a genuine foreign occupation expanded, they froze. My friends, in international relations, words matter less than capabilities. And capabilities matter less than alliances. Jolani's regime is wholly dependent on Turkey for security and the United States for political cover. Both Ankara and Washington have long, complicated, deeply intertwined strategic relationships with Israel. They will not allow the Syrian regime under Jolani to challenge Israeli actions. And Jolani knows that without these two pillars, his entire regime collapses overnight. So what does this mean for Syria? It means the country is entering a new phase of fragmentation, not the chaotic fragmentation of the civil war, but a geopolitical fragmentation where different foreign powers carve out zones of influence inside the country. Iran is sidelined, Russia is isolated and cautious, Turkey holds the north, the US holds the northeast, and Israel now expands its footprint in the south with full confidence. What happened, my friends, this week with the visit of Netanyahu to the newly occupied territories was not an isolated event. It was, you can call it a preview, a rehearsal, a demonstration of the new Middle East order, where Israeli military presence inside Syria becomes normalized, uncontested, and eventually permanent. And perhaps the most tragic irony of all is that the strongest resistance against Israeli occupation in Syrian modern history came from the very government that these factions overthrew, meaning the former regime. You don't have to like that fact, by the way, but it is a fact. Nonetheless, Syria today is ruled by a regime that cannot protect the sovereignty of the country, and all the rhetorical condemnation in the world will not change that reality. Israel knows it, the US knows it, Turkey knows it, and sadly, whoever sane left in Syria know it too. I'm going to continue a little bit with this video because it's very upsetting, to be honest.
ואני מאוד מאוד מעריך לא רק את מה שאתם עושים, אלא גם את העובדה שהמשפחות שלכם מתגייסות לזה. אני רוצה להעביר לכם תודה, לא רק מממשלת ישראל, אלא גם מאזרחי ישראל, ממדינת ישראל. תודה רבה לכם.
שבאמת אחרי הרבה שנים בהיסטוריה שלנו במדינה, אני מרגיש באופן אישי, גרמת לנו לזקיפות קומה, שעם ישראל פתאום מרים את הראש שלו. ולא מפחד מהאויבים ובמלחמה.
בקשות, רוצה להעריך את כל מה שאתם עושים יומם ולילה, אתם עובדים קשה מאוד, אנחנו נעשה כל מה שתבקשו מאיתנו, לך איתכם כמה שצריך.
You guys remember, especially if you're a Syrian or you follow Arabic press, when the regime change happened, the second day they started songs, like publicizing songs about the victory of the Syrian revolution, one of which was "Irfa rasak fo ente Suri hur," which means raise your head, you are a free Syrian. Well, if this is freedom, if this is dignity, as I told you in yesterday's stream, they're selling an upside down word, right? They are changing the words, they're changing the meanings, they are changing everything in the minds of the people. They're propagandizing them in a way that they're selling this as a victory. But I have to be very honest with you guys. When I watch senior Israeli military and security officials strolling comfortably across Syrian territory while Julani plays basketball with US officers like it's a summer camp, I just feel like there has never been a more humiliating chapter in Syria's modern history, and yet they market it as freedom and democracy. Some people say, I hope that the Syrian people will wake up. The Syrian people will not wake up under such circumstances. It is impossible for them to wake up now. They are occupied. Their minds are occupied. And you don't need to occupy a country physically if you can control the thinking and the public perception of the people about what is freedom, what is democracy, what is dignity, and what is best for them. And the people who come and try to educate, try to go against this propaganda, the tide, and tell the people, guys, this is what is going to happen, 1, 2, 3, if there is a power vacuum. And you start throwing stones on this person, you try to physically and mentally and psychologically eliminate this person completely from the discussion and even on social media platforms. You try to silence them. You try to do everything in your capacity to do character assassination. You call them names. You try to destroy them. Or in many cases, and I can show you endless comments of these Jolani supporters on my social media posts on X, for example, there are two things that these people tell me. Like, I do 1 hour of stream. I explain things to the people, for those who have brains and for those who want to listen and for those who would like to get a different perspective, right? But these people do not want to listen to any other perspective. So when I post something on X, they come, they tell me one of the two things. One is awiyulak, which means bark. Excuse me, but I don't speak your language. If you bark, that's your language. I'm not barking with you because I'm not a dog like you, sorry to say, for those people. And dogs are loyal people anyways. You cannot even compare them to dogs, sorry. Secondly, they come and say, why are you talking about Syria? Your grandparents came as refugees to Syria. You're not a Syrian. Go back to Armenia, right? But the problem is, if we want to consider every minority in Syria as an alien and they don't deserve to become Syrian, which means that only the Syrian Muslim Sunnis who believe in Jolani are the ones who deserve to become Syrians. You guys have already established a dictatorship first. And secondly, you established a type of a governance that is the dictatorship of the majority. And more importantly, the presence of the Armenians in the Levant and modern day in Syria goes back to the 2nd century BC, before even the Islamic conquests arrived to Syria. So if we're going to speak about history, I can teach these people about history, that the presence of the Armenians precedes the presence of the Islamic conquests in Syria. But we don't like to speak in this way because we consider this country for everybody. Syrian Muslims, Syrian Christians, Syrian Jews, Syrian Druze, Syrian Alawites, Syrian Shia, Syrian Sunni, everybody. This country combines everyone. But under such a regime, how is it possible for the people to coexist with this type of government? Like, where is my position in this country? What they're doing is they're treating us like a vase. They bring one woman, they put it in government, and they say, oh, we have an inclusive government. Or they bring a sellout Christian, and they put it in a position of power in Syria. Meanwhile, everything else is in their hands. And they say, look, we have a Christian in the government. No, you are just doing cosmetic reforms. This is not an inclusive government. And we don't want to be treated in any ways as a minority in Syria. We want to be treated as a Syrian. Don't look at us like we are some visitors and aliens in the country. We are Syrians. But they don't understand these things. And many of these people live in European and American countries. Like they are first, second, third generation of migrants. They go to the United States, and I received several comments from Syrian Americans who are old, like they're in my father's age, but their brains are so rotten, with sectarianism, racism, classicism, everything. Like these people, they have doctor and engineer in front of their names. They work in prestigious places, but here is rotten. And these people tell me, go back to your country. Why are you talking about Syria? Like these people go to the United States and they benefit from the liberal policies in these countries, and they vote for the liberal parties because they accept them as migrants and refugees in their own countries. And if the right-wing groups come and tell them that you're not an American or you're not a German, you're just a holder of this passport, they say, those are racists. They are bigots against us because we are Muslims. But you do worse. You do worse. When it comes to the people in your own country, you treat them like a third-level citizen, and you want to subjugate them, you want to humiliate them, you want to practice all your racism on them, and then you live in the United States and benefit from the liberal policies of these countries. This is crazy beyond belief, in my opinion, and I have not encountered as much as racism in my life from anyone but the people who support this type of policies, like the one that is followed by Jolani. People continue telling me, oh, in the West, it's full of racism and this and that. I mean, look, I have the longest beard, and people do not know which one is a Salafi beard and which one is not a Salafi beard. And I have not encountered racism in Germany, maybe twice by Germans. But every day, every single day, I receive racism and prejudice and bigotry by these people. And my reaction is just block them, because what can you speak with them? But this is the reality of the matter. So please, before speaking about the racism and bigotry in the Western countries, put a mirror in front of your face. I'm talking to these people, and look at yourself. You are the biggest fascist that you could ever imagine. You think Trump is a fascist, you think the AfD is a fascist, you say the Marine Le Pen is a fascist, and Hungary's prime minister, everybody is a fascist in your eyes, but you do more fascism than they are. And when you got in a position of power in Syria, you became like Hitler, you became like Mussolini, sorry to say. What you're doing to the Syrian people nowadays, and the way you're treating them, is completely out of line. What you're doing is you want to get revenge from the people who stood with their nation state against the inevitable outcome that we have been warning you for over 14 years. And that is that once there is a power vacuum, Israel will destroy the Syrian army and they will occupy large swaths of territories. The country will be balkanized. And now that this is happening, what is your response? What is your response? What is your response to this occupation? How are you going to liberate these territories? You will not. Do you think that Daddy Trump is going to come and force Netanyahu to withdraw from these territories? Habibi, I have a bridge to sell you, if that's what you believe. This is the advisor of Jolani. This is his response. Look at him. This is Ahmad Muwaffaq Zaidan. Ahmad Muwaffaq Zaidan has been the Osama bin Laden's favorite journalist, right? I will show you his photo here, just for you to know what are we talking about. Ahmad Zaidan, Osama bin Laden. So this is the guy that I'm talking about. This guy on the right of Osama bin Laden has been the favorite journalist of Osama bin Laden. And now Ahmad Zaidan is the advisor of Jolani. Now this is him. So this is the guy now advising Jolani after being a good boy for Osama bin Laden. And this is what he says. He says, as a reminder and a lesson, the Syrians managed to expel international and regional occupation forces. I don't know which one he's talking about, except for the Iranian advisors, and 66 sectarian militias. I mean, he's responding to this occupation of more Syrian territories and the visit of Netanyahu, right? He says, silence doesn't mean, nor should it be understood as weakness or cowardice, but our priorities are the stability of our country and the development of our people. Our friend Syrian girl says, so now the priority is stability, not 14 years ago. But you know what this reminds me of the Arabic saying, like drought al blot? This is like farting on the floor, you know? Oh yeah, we know how to fight. We're so brave. We can do this. But our priority is stability. Ya Ahmed Zaidan, Habibi. I hope you're following my work because I'm quote posting you. I hope you would be aware of what I'm saying about you. But your cowardice is beyond belief. Ya Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, you are advising him, right? He was like a Superman. He was like a lion against the Syrian National Army. You guys were lions against the Syrian army. You guys were so good in using American Tau missiles. You guys were so good in suicide bombing. You guys were sending hundreds of car bombs. You guys have over 100 nationalities in your army. Shu, ماذا حصل? Ahmad Zaidan, what happened? You guys are drought al blot. You're nothing but a fart on the ground. Netanyahu is, by the way, is not humiliating you. Netanyahu is humiliating us, Syrians. He's stepping on our necks. And under such circumstances, I would like to say something. There are people who fought for Jolani and they believed in the Islamic State. They believed that Jolani is this man of honor, man of dignity. They believed that Jolani is an independent actor. So many delusional people fought with Jolani, and they thought this was a holy war. Now that you guys reached to power, you want to become strategic partners with the United States that you guys said that you want to fight, and including Israel, right? These people are very, very upset nowadays. So under such circumstances, I will raise a hypothetical question. If, for an argument's sake, one of these people who are so upset of Jolani now in the country, one of these jihadists, assassinate Jolani, blows himself up, does something extraordinary. What is going to happen if Jolani is assassinated? Complete chaos in Damascus, right? The jihadists will start killing each other. It's going to be a jihadi civil war. If you thought that when one of the caliphs were dead and all this competition and killing started after the death of Prophet Muhammad was so brutal, remember what is going to happen in Syria if Jolani is dead and somebody assassinates him from the people who supported him, because nobody else has an interest in killing him, by the way. Under such circumstances, if there is a huge chaos and there is a jihadi infighting, a civil war, Israel will occupy Damascus. They will roll into Damascus in a matter of hours and they will do air raids. They will occupy the sensitive sites. They will take over Damascus. And don't say this is an impossible scenario. This is a very, very possible scenario. And this could be if a jihadist blows himself up or kills Jolani. This could be also manipulated by Israel, because Israel knows the opportunities it has in the country. And that's why they occupied large swaths of territories bigger than the Gaza Strip in Syria after the fall of the former Assad government. Therefore, if Israel wants to occupy Damascus, and I believe they want to occupy Damascus, they said, we want to occupy Damascus. Listen to what their officials say. Smotrich said, our borders start in Jerusalem and ends in Damascus. So under such circumstances, my friends, if this scenario comes into fruition, then Israel will occupy Damascus very easily. That's what's at stakes. And I'm not saying that Israel will continue occupying Damascus forever. What Israel will do, basically, if they occupy Damascus, they will bring someone into power who is very much into... he is not an asset for Turkey. He is very loyal to Israel. And Israel will knock out the Damascus influence in Damascus, the Turkish influence in Damascus. Because this is also, there is a different layer of competition between Turkey and Israel over Syria. And that's why Russia is playing as a buffer power between the Turkish influence and the Israeli influence. So all I'm saying is everybody should be careful and know what's at stakes now in Syria. And guys, please remember that although I criticized the allies in the past, I still do, Russia, China, Iran, and everyone, but the only ones who should be blamed are the Syrian people. And I want to show you this segment, which I was on the show on the Gaggle with Peter Lavelle and George Samueli, because I believe this is an important segment which I explain how these so-called rebels, the terrorists, couldn't differentiate between the state and the regime, and they destroyed the state assets. And now they stand completely naked in front of Israel with their own doing. This is what they did to the country, and this is what they deserve. When the war started in Syria, it makes zero sense that these fighters of Jolani, Ahrar Sham, Free Syrian Army, all of them are different shades and names, but it's almost the same. They started destroying Syria's air defenses. They started destroying Syria's satellites. They started burning Syria's wheat factories. And Syria had 5 years of food security. So if there was a drought, or there is all of a sudden it's a dystopia and the end of the world, Syrians could have lived 5 years from the wheat that they had. So when you destroy the wheat factory, and you destroy the air defenses and the satellite, these sites, means somebody was giving them the maps and the order to do that. Because if you're going to rise against a regime, you know the you know where is the chief of staff, you know where is the president, you know where is the defense minister, you know their officials. You're fighting against the officials of the regime, or you should. But these so-called rebels, they fought against the state. So they went and destroyed the state assets. So if Bashar is gone, you're going to replace him, right? You will need the air defenses. And that's why you saw, sorry for the terminologies, the idiots celebrating and taking photos near a Panzer S-1 and books destroyed by Israel and saying, we're free, we're free. These idiots do not even know that this is to protect the skies, not to shoot unarmed civilians or against protesters or against revolutionaries or name them whatever you want. But you're celebrating the demise of your state and the destruction of your infrastructure. So if there is anyone who should be blamed, are the Syrian people who collaborated with the Americans, with the Israelis. You guys are in, let's say you're in Moscow, you're in Hungary, there is an American sitting in Washington, D.C. If I give you today $10,000 and I tell you, go and you dislike your government, go and destroy the air defenses of your country, you're not going to do that because this is a state asset. It's not the regime. This is the state. But these people cannot differentiate between the state and between the government. So they destroyed their country and they created a situation where Syria is completely now sucked dry. They don't have any resources left because the Americans occupy almost everything. The carbohydrates are not in their hands. So their basic services is now dependent and reliant on outside forces, which means you will import everything. Meanwhile, Syria used to export everything to the outside world. They flipped everything upside down and they called it freedom. They called it now that the Syrian people are free. But they don't know what is the definition of freedom. So when I try to raise this logic, nowadays, it's like mass psychosis happened in the country. And that, you know, this Will Smith's movie, Man in Black, they have this machine like completely forget what happened yesterday. People lost their minds.
Well, people lost their minds. This is what I truly believe. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, and I'm not afraid of telling my mind about this. Like, I've been so diplomatic for so long time, but watching Netanyahu like cruising basically inside Syrian territories, meanwhile all these so-called brave mujahideen are turned into rabbits all of a sudden and do meow meow all the time. It's like they deserve to become a mockery, you know? We should mock them as much as we can. I truly believe that what is happening in the country is so absurd on so many levels that personally, I truly cannot handle it anymore in a way that, oh, I'm going to come and just explain to you things geopolitically. No, I'm also Syrian and I'm watching all these things and it makes my blood boil. And not only, by the way, the Israeli occupation, so that we be on the same page. The Turkish occupation is worse than the Israeli occupation, and it's more dangerous because the Turkish occupation of the north and many places in Syria, including Idlib and Aleppo, is worse than the Israelis, because Israelis, if they occupy Damascus for an argument's sake, theoretically, and God forbidden, of course, they cannot rule over Damascus with their own army itself. They will need allies from those who agree with them to manage the affairs. But Aleppo and Idlib, if the Turks occupy it directly, the Syrian people, especially the Muslims, they will come and say, yeah, those are our brothers and sisters. They are Muslims, and we were part of the Ottoman Empire. No problem with the Turkish occupation because they're Muslims. But because Israel is a Jewish country, then that's a problem. And Israel knows that. And Israel knows that they cannot just occupy Syria without having people fighting for them from the Syrians, politically and militarily. That's the difference between Turkey and Israel. So that's why I say for a long time, the Turkish occupation is worse and it is more dangerous because they have this cultural and religious aspect that they could project on the Syrians and say, we guys were all one under the Ottoman Empire. We belong to the same religion. We all believe in Prophet Muhammad, and we will lead you in the Islamic Ummah. We will make you dignified again and all these things. And that's how Turkey has basically infiltrated the Syrian society and many other Arabic and Islamic societies. Basically, the cultural and religious pillar was very important in the revival of the neo-Ottoman policy of Erdogan. Guys, as you guys are watching this stream, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to this YouTube channel as you're watching. That really helps this channel grow and this content reach to more people. Our friend JB4421 says, brilliant show. I appreciate your perspective. It's my pleasure, my friend. He says, you're a great voice against corporate media. I try, like, I don't want to be someone who is just nagging against the corporate media. I'm just like, when the corporate media, in my opinion, is wrong and they're manipulating the people, I try to expose them, you know? And our friend, Take the Red Pill Now, says, thanks for the info. Syria was destroyed by the US via sanctions, occupation of wheat and oil fields, and instigations of civil unrest, civil war. Very sad. Completely correct. And but my friend, believe me, all this blame that we put on the imperialists are completely legitimate. But were it not for the Syrians who were willing and have cooperated with the United States and Israel and Turkey and all the powers which intervened in Syria without any exception, this would not have been the outcome. Syrians facilitated this outcome, right? That's the unfortunate truth. So now that Israel is rolling into Syria even further, the Israeli ambassador in the UN, he pretends now that he cares so much about the minorities.
In July, southern Syria saw the brutal targeting of the Druze community. Homes burned, families murdered. For Israel, the Druze are not strangers. They are our brothers, our sisters, bound to us by a deep historic and national ties. Their safety is our concern, and we were proud to have acted with precision and solidarity to prevent further slaughter.
We have proved ourselves to Syrians, to our region, to our allies, to the new countries we're engaged.
We have learned the lesson from Lebanon. We will not allow militias to be at the border.
So Israeli special permanent envoy to the UN pretends that they care about the Druze and of Syria. And I would like to say something to the Druze of Syria and those who are listening. I have friends nowadays who are in the diaspora and some of them in Sweden, and they're Druze, and they see that they have no other choice but to accept the Israeli help. And I'm not going to come and stand against them and tell them, no, don't do it under the gunpoint, because what the Syrian permanent envoy to the UN said is completely false. They haven't proven anything to the Syrian people, and they haven't shown the Syrian people any mercy, especially the ethnic and religious minorities. None. But at the same time, my friends in Sweden, Israel is using you to expand inside Syria. And their sudden care about the Druze. Remember, 4 or 5 years ago, when Daesh, ISIS, attacked against Sweden and murdered hundreds of Druze, remember that, right? This was only 4 or 5 years ago. When ISIS attacked Sweden and murdered hundreds of Druze people, Syrian Druze in Sweden, Israel didn't blink an eye. And the one who protected you and fought for you was the Syrian National Army. That's a fact. That's a fact. Back then, they couldn't say, we are coming, or they didn't say we're coming to protect the Druze, because there was a Syrian state, a legitimate Syrian state. Now we have a gang, illegitimate gang in power. And since you have a gang in power, and especially that this gang is an Islamist, Takfiri, terrorist, jihadi regime, Israel has all the justifications now to say, I'm the protector of the Druze. I have Druze in my country, in Israel, and now I want to include them into Israel. And many people in the Druze community will accept that. That's the unfortunate truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. That's the unfortunate truth. So Jolani's permanent envoy to the UN had also some other statements here.
وضربها عرض الحائط بكل القوانين والأعراف الدولية.
So he says this recent visit of Netanyahu to the newly occupied territories, like he violated all the norms and the rules of international law. Oh my God, imagine my shock. Israeli politician is violating international law.
شهدنا اليوم جولة استعراضية قام بها رئيس وزراء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي.
He says this visit of Israeli Prime Minister was like a theater inside Syria.
بنيامين نتنياهو صباح اليوم في المناطق التي توغل فيها جيش الاحتلال السوري.
Like he also wants to say Israeli occupation forces. He said Syrian occupation forces. I mean, he's correct. I mean, he's just a kid. He doesn't know anything about anything anyways. And he was appointed thanks to his Muslim Brotherhood background. And he's one of these construct of the UK intel structures. And they love the Muslim Brotherhood people. And he was cherry-picked to represent Syria in the UN. ماشي حبيبي.
جنوب سوريا تدين حكومة بلادي.
The Syrian government condemns, guys,
وبأشد العبارات هذه الجولة
in the strongest terms, this provocative visit of Netanyahu to this blah, blah, blah. I want to remember his name. What was his name? I forgot his name. What was his name? Ibrahim Alabi. Ibrahim Alabi. Wait. Ibrahim Alabi. Let's see. Because he follows me on X. And that would be funny because he follows me and we're talking about him now. Ibrahim Alabi. Alabi. I couldn't find him. Ibrahim Alabi. Anyways, this guy follows me, guys, on X. Alabi. Ibrahim Alabi. Let's see his name first in Latin letters. Ibrahim Alabi. Okay. We found him. Maybe he blocked me. I don't know. I guess I cannot find him anymore. I found him. This is him. This is the guy. As you can see, Chatham House, you know. This is the UN, the Syria's the permanent envoy to the UN. A construct of British structures. No experience at all. He's representing a country at the UN. Zero diplomatic experience. And now he thinks by raising his voice on Israel that the Israelis are being to be terrified. I hope you're listening to this, Ibrahim Habibi. I would love to have you on this show, by the way. And I promise you that I would be very respectful. I would be just discussing you and debating you. I doubt that you would come. But that would be an interesting conversation with you. Yeah, Chatham House is a UK deep state. Of course, these people are Jonathan Powell's people, Tony Blair's people, UK Secret Service. Unfortunately, this is what we have at the moment in Syria. And the trumpets of Jolani, while Israel is occupying largest swaths of territories in Syria, this is what they're selling to the people. This is one of the trumpets of Jolani. Her name is Sally Dermouche. And she says, we're witnessing development and prosperity, the new traffic lights inside the capital of Damascus. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The development and advancement in Syria has begun, guys. We are going to become the new Japan now. Check.
بلش التطور، بلش الازدهار، بلشت ترجع سوريا الحبيبة بأرضها وشعبها وتطورها. الإشارات المرورية الجديدة من أمام حديقة المدفع داخل العاصمة دمشق. سوريا إلى مزيد من التطور.
الله أكبر. سوريا إلى المزيد من التطور يا شباب. Syria is moving in a very fast pace to development. We have now new traffic lights. People are completely insane. I don't know what to say. But I think here is the truth, my friends, about why Israel can and will occupy more Syrian land without encountering any meaningful deterrence from the Jolani regime. Because the regime in Damascus today is not a sovereign state and not an independent actor. It is a security subcontractor installed through a foreign engineered process and sustained by the very powers whose strategic objective is to keep Syria fragmented, weakened, and unable to project force beyond its municipal borders. A government, a regime that owes its existence to Washington, Ankara, Doha, and London cannot deter Israel, period. It can barely enforce basic order inside its own territory. It cannot build a military, cannot decide its borders, cannot negotiate on equal footing, and certainly cannot confront a regional nuclear power backed by the United States. The equation is brutally simple, my friends. A regime created by external intelligence agencies will serve the interests of those agencies, not the interests of Syria. And Israel understands this better than anyone. So I hope today's stream was helpful. I hope the commentaries and the analysis were on point. I hope you liked it, guys. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to Syriana Analysis. And if you'd like to support this channel even more, you can become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. Or if you're using your smartphone and watching it on your TV, you can simply scan this QR code and support this independent work. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning into today's stream. Special thanks to everyone who chatted in the live chat respectfully and tried to have a debate and a discussion. And also a very, very, very much thank you to our moderator, Red Access, for joining us today and moderating the live chat. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you tomorrow with our dear friend Tarek Jibril Amar at 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. It's going to be the episode 33 of Cold War 2.0. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.